Hey, I'm Chi Ossé, and welcome to Let It Rip. We're coming to you from the CUNY TV studios in the shadow of the Empire State Building in New York City. Today we're discussing power, who has it and who controls it in New York City. Now, without question, being the mayor of New York City will elevate your profile to the national and international stage and may even create the illusion of an almighty political force in the city. But due to the government's checks and balances, some may forget it's actually the New York City Council, a body of 51 members that passes laws, has oversight over city agencies, and is responsible for passing the city's $109 billion budget. Now, all too often, we hear New York City Mayor Eric Adams saying,
I'm the mayor. I'm the mayor of the most important city on the globe.
well, this is my police department.
My police officers.
My police officers.
Which some may perceive as a sense of ultimate control, while for others, it may underscore a lack of partnership between all branches of city government. Now, with major challenges such as affordable housing, public safety, and criminal justice reforms facing New York City, we wanted to spotlight a few members of the New York City Council to hear how they plan on navigating this new legislative session. Now, here to help us discuss the path forward are Council members Sandy Nurse, Chi Ossé, and one of the Council's newest members, Yusef Salaam. I'm Chi Ossé, and this is Let It Rip. Yusef, I'll start with you. It's great to see you again. Last time you were here was the debate stage. How are you feeling so far?
I'm feeling inspired. I'm feeling invigorated. It's a good day to be a council member. Definitely great to experience maybe some of the challenges of being in this position. Definitely. But I'm really, really glad to be here.
Okay. And so, much has been said, particularly in the newspapers, with regard to your prior experience with the criminal justice system, and now just not making it into the city council, but being committee chair of the Public Safety Committee. How do you feel about that?
I've said before that, when you come to a point in your life when you realize why you went through what you went through, it all makes sense. To be able to have been a person that has been crying out for justice, that has been in pain. Often we want people who've had those kinds of experiences to have a seat at the table. And the great thing about my experience is that this is almost a 35-year journey of fighting for justice, of understanding the nuances of community issues, being a person who has been evicted before, being a person who's been stopped and frisked before, right? Most certainly being a person who's been in the criminal justice system, I, in many ways, was a person who was in so much pain, in fact, that I called it the criminal system of injustice. And I started to have hope again in realizing that I want to one day call it the criminal justice system again. When I think about all of the things that are impacting us, we can't just look at just one aspect as the primary source of our pain. In fact, it's the educational system as well, right? It's the system that provides us the ability to have safe streets. It's, the fact that we need justice on so many fronts to undergird and support our communities.
That's pretty good. And Sandy, I'm going to come to you with regard to the last session. One of the bills that you guys voted for was the How Many Stops Act. I just wanted to get your sense of what that bill does and why it's important.
Yeah. Fixing and repairing some of the injustices that have been done, particularly to young New Yorkers, young Black men. I mean, I think here in the show, I'm the least targeted right now, sitting here for a stop, and you all are. And so I think you all are best equipped to speak from experience about how much this will mean to young Black men. As someone who ran a youth program, I understand what young folks in New York City, particularly from low-income communities, from underinvested in communities in the outer boroughs experience, and they're living with a lot of many things coming at them at once: housing instability, food insecurity, issues, youth violence, their parents struggling, trying to understand themselves and where they fit in. And so having the fear of interactions with the police and the experiences that they've had, and from them telling us what's wrong, and from the many people who have family members who have survived and had their family members taken from them because of state violence, because of a level 1 stop. So just to be clear, this bill, what it does is requires our police officers to report on level 1 stops if they have time after the actual stop or at the end of their tour, depending on the nature of what's going on with their interactions. A level 1 stop is in the patrol guide, so it's very clear. And what this reporting bill will do is allow us to collect data and finally quantitatively say that there is disproportionate stopping of young people of color for reasons no other than their racial identity.
Okay. So what Sandy just said makes absolute sense, but Mayor Adams is coming out against a bill.
Sure.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, Mayor Adams is very proud of his history of being a cop, right? He self-describes himself as a cop mayor. Once an officer, always an officer, we sometimes see within this city. He takes a lot of pride in his past of being a police officer, and I think through that experience, it has blinded him from any type of transparency or legislation or regulation when it comes to one of the largest police departments, not only in the country, but within the world. This bill is a bill that was advocated for and pushed for by a lot of Black and brown families who were directly impacted by police violence. And that's something that we're trying to highlight within the City Council and really trying to push through within the mayor's frame, as well as the public's frame of thinking. I think this mayor doesn't really have much respect for the City Council. I think we've seen that over the past couple of years. And he found this as the moment where he would veto a package that not only infringes on his belief of always upholding the NYPD for what it is, but also his lack of respect for the City Council.
Yusef, what's your take on the bill now? And given your experience, do you think this is something that is important for the city?
My stance is about what is there to hide, right? When I think about the fact that, let's say we wanted to capture everything, right? Let's say we wanted to, participate in the exercise of just capturing everything and putting it into a process and a system that allows us to understand, to explain, to dissect.
Right.
Because why? Because we want to get to the point of us being able to have a better system, right? We want to get to a point for a Yusef Salaam in the future to say, no, it's not the criminal system of injustice, but it's the criminal justice system. It's a system that works. And I think when I think about what this bill is trying to really do, it is in support of ensuring that the most vulnerable of us, who, by the way, are still counted as 3/5 of human beings, right? They've never gone to reform the 3/5 idea that Black people in general have never been a part of the fullness of citizenship in this country. When you've been disenfranchised, like I have, the question is, have you really ever been part of the franchise? So all of the things, all of the protections that are out there are very, very short of saying, hold on, we need to make sure that we have bills that directly support Black people, because we are an endangered species.
Okay. You framed it really, really well earlier on. So if we understand that Black folks, Black men in particular, are affected by the police in particular ways, why then is the mayor, who is Black, and he's a man also, being the ones to push back so strongly?
Yeah. I can't speak for what the mayor's intentions are here. I think we have to look in the context of the last 2 years. This is a person who has cut funding to our most critical and most vital social safety net services. We have backlogs when it comes to people getting certified for their food stamps. We have our housing stock is in terrible condition. People are living in unsafe housing with mold, with water issues. We have units that are vacant, that are sitting there inaccessible to many, many families. We have a library system with only 6 days of service now. Most of our jobs, and we were telling Yusef before air, most of our jobs is spent asking the agencies to do the jobs that they already are supposed to be doing. And they struggle because they don't have capacity. They don't have enough staff to do the work they do. And so this has been really unpopular. Cuts to pre-K, cuts to childcare, cuts to 3K, those cuts to our public education system, those have been wildly unpopular. So what better issue to fight and bully the council on than a public safety issue, which he, I imagine feels that he has the high ground on because of his background. And the issue is this council, 34 women, mostly women of color, coming from a lot of different backgrounds across the city, care very deeply about public safety. We care about the people in our communities. We care about the families. We are here in service of them. We are advocating, have spent 2 years advocating against cuts to the services that support them. So perhaps this is a big to-do about nothing to distract from the fact that his budget has been wildly unpopular, his budget cuts, and that, yes, he does not respect and does not collaborate and partner with the council in a way that I feel like fosters us getting to a solution.
What's your take on the fact that it is the city council that actually gets to vote on the budget? We know that some of the committee reassignments that happened, it's rumored that, part of what happened was retaliation because you and Sandy and several other council members voted against the budget the last time. So going into this budget cycle, what's your approach given what Sandy just laid out in terms of the budget cuts and everything that's happening?
Yeah, listen, the past 2 years have been 2 years that I've been extremely proud of. I voted with my morals and I voted with the support of my constituency, right? The people of Bed-Stuy and Northern Crown Heights. The past 2 budgets did not work for not only the people that I represent, but the city as a whole, right? We saw cuts within the Department of Education, the Department, of Mental Health and Hygiene, right? We saw cuts in NYCHA. We saw cuts across the board that impact communities of color, Black and brown communities like the ones that I represent. And I'm proud of voting against both of those budgets because of what they did to the people that I represent. I look at every single budget in the same way that I look at the one in the past. How does this affect the people who I represent? How does this affect the people of New York City? And that's how I will approach this coming budget. I will continue to be an advocate for the people of the 36th District. And I'll look at this document that he'll provide us while also not being distracted by a couple vetoes to bills that will directly impact and support all of the communities who we represent.
Okay. What's your take on the fact that the news outlets indicated that you being stripped of your committee assignment was essentially retaliation for not voting for the budget the last time, and as a progressive too? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I definitely read those articles. I really hope that that's not wasn't the intention of the speaker, as well as the power that exists within the city council. I'm very proud of the work that I did within my committee chairmanship over the past 2 years that I chaired the committee. We saw a record number of investment within the arts and cultural space, as well as no cuts to both libraries and arts and culture. So I'm really hoping that wasn't based on merit because of all the work that I put into it.
Which is why I wanted to come back to you and say, but you've done amazing work within that committee. I think a lot of folks would second that. Isn't it too much of a coincidence that somehow you'd be stripped despite the fact that you've been so excellent in that particular committee?
Listen, I really hope that that's not the case, but that's what I hear a lot about politics, right? There are consequences for sometimes not being a team player, whether that's voting on a budget you agree on or don't agree on. However, all I can say is I would change nothing that I've done over the past 2 years, and I still have a lot more work to do because I'm at the beginning of my career.
All right, looking forward to it. Yusef, I want to come to you with regard to some of your legislative goals for your district as, the newest council member here. What are some of the things that you want to tackle going into this legislative cycle?
Well, I want to make sure that we move as one body. As I'm learning this new role, this new position in life, I'm also understanding that we need justice across the board. Harlem has been a place where we have the most recognition in the world, but we've been the most forgotten. And so therefore, we've been a dumping ground for things like oversaturation, where it comes to folks coming into our community using drugs, and therefore all of the things that are derivatives of drug use. You would look at a video, say for instance, today on the east side of Harlem on 125th Street, and look at the video from yesteryear of the east side of Harlem, 125th Street, and you would think this was the same time. But yet it could be the time where there was a war on drugs. But the truth of the matter is that the war on drugs has always been a war on people. The Betty Ford clinics of the world were opened up when things spilt over into communities that had the complexion for acceptance. And when I think about my community, my beloved place that I grew up, that I'm proud of, I think about how we need so much support. And I get the opportunity to use my very lived experience, even though I wasn't a person that was moving policy and so forth back when I was being run over by the spike wheels of justice. But it's given me a very, very unique understanding of how we need to fight for those very things. The fact that people in my community are telling me that their homes are being stolen from them. It's not just a matter of we have an AMI problem that is allowing for rents to skyrocket, but yet the basic salaries aren't meeting the fact that people can afford these homes. And so when I think about what supports we need and how I'm going to be really involved in the work of the council, it's because I'm looking at personal experiences, the fact that I had to make a decision whether I can pay the rent or feed my family.
So with what you've laid out in terms of your vision, which I think for most people is the right kind of vision to make sure that you revitalize your district, but what are your thoughts on the mayor who has pushed back on some of the progressive ideals that you've articulated as part of your vision? What do you think you're going to do that is going to allow you to accomplish that, despite a mayor who may be tilting towards the right?
So I think when I think about housing as an issue, I walk around my community, and yes, we have vacant lots that are in need of we need to build more housing.
Right.
But guess what we also have in our community? We have buildings that are in need of repair that are boarded up. We have buildings that are not fully occupied.
Right. But what do you think the mayor is? Is he going to be someone that you can rely on to kind of get?
Well, so that's where I'm coming to, right?
Uh-huh.
When I think about the fact that we can, these are opportunities, right? I want to look at them not necessarily as where we are right now, but as opportunities for us to say, hey, hold on, let's figure out a way forward. A way forward could be, look, these landlords who have not allowed for the revitalization of our communities to happen should not be holding on to property for some later windfall of money coming in. Because what people are doing in our community unwittingly is that they're leaving. Over 200,000 people have left Harlem, have left New York. And why have they left? They've left because it's been so, when that commercial, when the politician was running for office and he kept saying, the rents are too damn high. Guess what? The rents are still
right.
Too damn high, right? And so when I think about the push, right, in unison that a mayor has their voice is so powerful that they can, in fact, make sure that all of our communities are revitalized together.
Okay.
And so that's where my conversation coming to the table with our mayor is that space.
Okay, gotcha. Sandy, you did some amazing work with the Sanitation Committee last year. And I know some of the legislation that may carry over this year is with regard to requiring city-owned buildings to have solar panels. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I was really, really proud of my 2 years as the sanitation chair. We got the RAT action plan done, which had bills from Councilmember Chi Ossé, who also did great legislative work during his first 2 years. We got the Zero Waste Act passed, which has universal curbside, which is of Councilmember Hanif's bill, but also put the city on track to come up with a plan to achieve zero waste. So I'm really proud of that. I'm disappointed that some of the sanitation cuts had led to green job workers being laid off. And maybe there's an opportunity to fix that in this budget cycle. But we do have climate goals that I think the city needs to achieve that will benefit all New Yorkers. We should be using as much of our roof capacity as possible, especially on our publicly owned buildings. We don't have to beg anybody to let us use their roof. We own the roof. Let's just put some solar on it. And so there's a lot of work to be done to achieve 100 to 150 megawatts of renewable energy for the city. So I'm really excited to continue doing a lot of the environmental and climate justice work that I've been doing for a long time. It's a big passion of mine, but I'm also really excited about the opportunity that the speaker gave me to chair the Committee of Criminal Justice. Right. And what that means for the agenda. And I think there's going to be a lot of overlap for the work we do. And I know Councilmember Ossé does a lot of work. We are really all focused on closing Rikers, also to override the solitary confinement bill that the mayor just vetoed. But also remember Rikers, the Renewable Rikers Act of 2019 has an important role to play in achieving the city's climate goals by turning that into really a powerhouse for the city with renewable energy. So some of these different issues all kind of come together, from the sanitation environmental work to now the criminal justice work and the long overdue issue of closing Rikers that needs to happen.
Councilmember, I'll come to you with regard to your bill, the FAIR Act, which has generated quite a bit of excitement amongst real estate folks.
Sure.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
Housing is my #1 priority, and I want it to be the #1 priority of every single elected official, not only within the city, but the state of New York. As my colleague said over here, the rent is still too damn high. I represent Bed-Stuy, where we saw the largest displacement of Black people out of every community within New York City, right? That's folks who are being priced out through rents. That's folks who are having their homes stolen through deed theft. That's also, it's people who cannot move around the city to find more affordable housing because of how expensive broker fees are, right? This bill, the FAIR Act, which stands for Fairness in Apartments Rental Expenses Act, is a bill that would require that whomever hires a broker when looking for an apartment pays the broker fee. It's common sense, whatever you ask for or hire or order in every other industry in this country, you pay for that service, right? When you're a tenant looking for new housing within New York City, you find an apartment on your own sometimes on Street Easy or some other application. You look at the apartment and there'll be a broker there who just opens the door for you, who was also hired by the landlord. But when you're ready to sign the lease, you see that you have to pay a broker fee ranging from 15 to 20% of your annual rent. If you are a New Yorker, whether you're a single mother, whether you're a union worker who is required to work in the city, and you're working paycheck or living paycheck to paycheck, it's hard to pay that additional broker fee just to move into a new apartment, right? You have to save multiple paychecks, maybe $10,000 to move into that apartment. This bill would change that. And last session, we were extremely close, the closest we've ever been to regulating the broker system within New York City. I'm going to push it again this session because of the amount of momentum that we have from last session. And it would be something that would alleviate at least a drop in the bucket of the housing crisis that exists within New York City.
Great discussion, but we have to end it there. I want to thank our 3 guests, Council Members Sandy Nurse, Chi Ossé, and Yusef Salaam. I'm Kerry Gashuro, and this is Let It Rip. Before we end, we'd like to celebrate the life of Sister Viola Plummer, a woman whose love for Black people was matched only by her tireless efforts dedicated to the self-determination and liberation of Black people domestically and internationally. Now, more recently, it was Sister Plummer who organized the community to pressure Governor Kathy Hochul to sign the reparations bill. Sister Plummer was also a force in local politics, where she worked tirelessly on various issues such as community control of policing, stopping gentrification, and increasing true affordable housing. Internationally, she was respected by many African leaders because of her fight against colonialism and neocolonialism, as well as her human rights work. For example, Sister Plummer led the Dublin 400, a coalition of 400 people, to the United Nations World Conference Against Racism in Durban, South Africa, where slavery and the transatlantic slave trade were recognized as crimes against humanity and that reparations were due. The consummate Pan-Africanist and internationalist, Sister Plummer leaves a remarkable legacy dedicated not only to the fight for freedom, but one that emphasized the importance of training and mentoring the next generation of young leaders. Thank you so much, Sister Plummer. We will not forget you. I'm Gutierrez, and this is Let It Rip.